Good day everyone. It's been 6 months since I purchased this car, and I'm just going to talk to you about my experience with it so far. Apologies for that dodgy launch, but I thought it was a little bit fun. And on this cold 3.5 degree winter's day, I think it's important that I just talk about the things that make this GTI great and this GTI maybe not so great in some areas. Now let's get into it. If you're unaware, I bought this car back in June and I've been driving it ever since. I've covered 15,000 kilometers, and around this time I think I'm at like 6 months now of ownership. And this is obviously this was a big moment. I was very excited when I got this car. When I drove it, I really enjoyed it. And after spending 15,000 kilometers sitting in it and daily driving it more or less, I have come to terms with any things that I like and dislike. Starting off with one of the first things I like, and that is the simple all-round performance. Not only is this a fast car, but it's also a practical one. It's relatively decent on fuel. Now, I wish it was a bit better. I know we were promised 44 mpg. I seen 41 one time out of a tank, and that was it. Now, I have gotten decent fuel economy over like shorter journeys that don't involve towns, but other than that, like, fuel economy's been above average for a sports car, or hot hatch is probably the more accurate term. And yeah, I think fuel economy's been pretty good. And not to mention, at the end of the day, it still has its golf characteristics, so it's well built in the inside, everything is where it should be. Is it as exciting as its rivals? Well, to be honest, I haven't driven any of its rivals, so I wouldn't know. Although I've seen an i30N, I've seen Civic Type Rs, Focus STs, and from what I have heard, they're maybe a little bit more exciting to drive. But that being said, this car isn't boring either. Like, it may be down on power compared to a Focus ST, but you still get slightly better build quality, better fuel economy, lower emissions, so it's cheaper to tax, and it puts you in a lower insurance group as well. So, have I had any issues with this car, you might be asking? To be honest, I've had absolutely nothing go wrong so far. I'm quite thrilled with that. Although the front tyres, they were Mizani's 607 Eco Plus or something. I can't even remember what they were off the top of my head. They didn't last very long. Around 11,000 kilometers, I was ready to change them. I've since swapped them out with Goodyear asymmetric F1 tyres, which are a cracking little tyre. Now, I noticed when I had the older tyres on, I used to wheel spin all the time, and although it could be a little bit frustrating, but it's still very fun because it's like, just kind of makes the car feel a little unhinged. And that's the same with the kind of Goodyears. Now, I remember driving home just after fitting them, and the handling was incredible. Like, there was a great handling improvement, and it's a lot smoother, and they seem to be holding up so far. I think I had them fitted in November, so there's still plenty of life left in them. And other than that, the car is completely standard. I think the only option that was fitted was maybe I think the paint might have been an option, and then there was the technology pack, so it has the reversing camera as well. But other than that, GTI is well equipped. Heated seats, I believe, are standard, as is the dual zone climate control, this lovely virtual dash. So if you want a lot of bang for your buck and a car that's incredibly well equipped, GTI could be a car to look for. A slight drawback, but not really much of a drawback. I think one leads to another, is that if you buy a GTI and expect to be the centre of attention, unless you've had a horrible crash, that's not going to happen. The car is very understated. Not a lot of people would pay much attention to it at times. I mean, I go to Cars and Coffee, I'll get a few pictures taken, but not too many. And to be fair, that after a while it didn't bother me too much. But at the end of the day, it is just a sporty Golf. I think if it was modified a little bit or a little bit louder, then you could argue that it would definitely be a bit more attention seeking. That's the thing with hot hatches, GTIs in particular, because they kind of understand the hot hatchback recipe. I feel a lot better than some other cars do, and it has to be extra noisy and go bah, 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 every time you're like changing gear. This car just shows up, has a bit of power to impress people, and is fun to drive for what it is, and it just does the job and leaves. Another thing that I have found a little bit frustrating since buying a GTI is that if you find up badging annoying, you're going to find it even more annoying after you buy this car. Like, you see lots of young people, or even people you know, oh, my friend is a GTI, when it's actually a 1.6 diesel with a GTI badge on it. It's unbelievably frustrating, and it's kind of just like, you're just lying to the world. How is a girl supposed to believe you when you drive a car that isn't actually what it says in the back? One thing I do enjoy, as you've seen there, is the performance. This is 230 horsepower, it's not a performance pack, but it does shift. It's definitely faster than the average car on the road, and when it comes to overtaking or just you're on a back road to yourself, it just can get up and go in no time. It will get you into trouble, but it's probably important that with great power comes great responsibility, as Uncle Ben once said. And in regards to that, I think this car is definitely well suited for these roads and Ireland in general. More on that in a minute. This is something, if you're living in Ireland, obviously you know we've got high insurance and the vehicle registration tax. It's all a bit of a joke, to be honest. But where does the GTI fit into that? Now, road tax in this car is $400 a year, which is double what my old Mark 6 1.6 TDI was, which to some people is quite a lot. If I wanted a Golf R, I'd be paying just under double that. So that was obviously one thing, the why going away from a Golf R, like just obviously paying into it and then paying to run it. Like, if this car is barely getting 40 mpg and struggling, on average I'm getting 38, what the hell is a Golf R getting with my kind of driving? Another thing to note out is, obviously I've had the car 6 months and needs to be serviced already, so I'm obviously doing quite a lot of miles, maybe a little too much for this car. So that's another thing that you should probably, if you're in the market for a hot hatch in general, I think that's something you're going to be worried, because you're going to be paying a lot of money on fuel. But if that doesn't bother you, if you're happy enough to pay that extra bit, I think I've just got post-diesel ownership syndrome, so I'm not used to paying that much for fuel. But yeah, other than that, it is a cracking little car, and they are great fun. It is all worth it in the end, I think. It's just something, and this is the pill you need to be prepared to swallow. So now, back to the Golf R comparison. Why did I not buy a Golf R? To be honest, looking at current Golf R prices, I'm asking myself the same question. Although, one thing I will note is that at the time of purchase, the car market was a little bit insane. I think it's beginning to mellow a little bit, which is both good news and bad news for me. Values of GTIs has kind of remained the same, which is good for now. And then the Golf Rs, particularly the older Mark 7s with like 80,000 kilometers on them, 80,000 miles I mean actually, so more than 80,000 kilometers, are surfing at around 22 to 25. And look, I think that's great bang for your buck, but you're going to be paying more in tax. You're going to have 3 or 4 owners in that car, and not to mention it's going to be 10 years old. It's going to have 10-year-old car issues, and I can't imagine a Golf R that's very cheap. So I think if you're more interested in the daily driving fun car, although a Golf R is perfect for a daily, I think the GTI is even more perfect, because it's a lot more comfortable in this car. This car is incredibly comfortable. It actually has me a little bit anxious to modify it in case I ruin the ride quality and just don't make it as good of a daily as it could be. Right, so another question is, what is my plan for this car for 2024? Other than driving it, looking after it and enjoying it, I have nothing set in stone, although I would like to address some of the drawbacks with the GTI. The first of which being the exhaust. I think it's just a little too quiet. Although it doesn't sound too bad, I would ideally like to upgrade it. I've told mixed things about Miltech. I hear they're kind of a lot of flanges in those exhausts, although they do sound pretty sweet. And I know in Ireland we've got like strict enough noise and emissions tests when our cars get inspected, so a lot of people who have aftermarket exhausts would have to then take them off when they're going into inspection, Look, I don't really have the tools or the expertise to that. Now look, swapping an exhaust isn't too difficult, as so I've been told. So ideally, if I was to replace the exhaust, I would like something that I wouldn't have to change between inspection, because I probably will keep this car for another 2 years or so. Anyway, moving on, other upgrades I like to do are brakes. Although the standard brakes are fine, they're not the R brakes. Now I could just change them to Golf R brakes, although that can be kind of a little bit pricey at times. Or I could just stick with the standard brakes I have and just upgrade the pads and rotors. Brembo and EBC do kits for that. But other than obviously maybe brakes and exhaust, I might consider suspension, but I don't want to lose too much comfort. So things I can just find ways to improve the handling of this car. I think that will be something I would be after, because it would still be my daily, and I don't really think I want to sacrifice that too much. Or ideally, if I had more space, I could just buy another car. But yeah, I think that's really everything I got to say, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. It might be a little bit of a long one, but I'll try to narrow it all down. That being said, I appreciate the support throughout 2023. I didn't really mention that, but I know I got some good comments over the year and some good support. If you haven't already, do check out my socials. My TikTok is quite active. I do post memes on that all the time, and I think I'd like to get more followers in it. I think I'm at like 500 at the moment. If I can get over to 1,000 by the end of the year, I think I'll be pretty chuffed with myself. And I also have a Patreon. If you're into assetto corsa and modding, I'm going to start adding some of my mods there. Some of my older mods, I had an Evo 9 FQ360 mod that I made. It's recently been refreshed. I'm going to add the post of that in the description below, and all the things I'm going to share will be in the description below. And that being said, I appreciate you for sticking around. If you stuck around this long, I like you. I love you actually. And thank you all for watching. Hope to see you all very soon.